All right, so these are the initial check your understanding questions for sample means and the sampling distribution for the sample mean. So for part A, we want to determine the probability that a randomly chosen US teen watches YouTube for more than 25 minutes in a given day. And so this is asking about the population. And so when we draw our normal curve here, it's important that we use the population parameters. And so this is actually mu and sigma, which are listed here. I pulled that from this problem. And I constructed the normal curve and sketched the area that I'm looking for, which is greater than 25 minutes. Then this is the standardized curve with the z-score. So the z-score is given by value minus mean divided by standard deviation. In this case, the formula would look like this. This would be x bar minus mu over sigma. And you'd get a z-score of 123, which would be placed here on the standardized distribution. I use the calculator command normal CDF. The lower bound is 1.23. The upper bound is positive infinity, or in your calculator, 1E99. And then the mean of the standardized distribution, if you're using the z-score, should be 0 and standard deviation 1. And that yields the area 0.109. And so that is also the probability that a randomly chosen US teen from our population is going to watch YouTube for more than 25 minutes in a given day. So moving on down to B, C, and D, now notice that we are talking about a sample of US teens. And so the sample size here is given as 10. So N equals 10. And X bar is the mean of the amount of time spent watching YouTube videos for that particular sample. So what is the mean of the sampling distribution of X bar? And so that's what this symbol denotes. This is the mean of the sampling distribution of X bar. We know that that is equivalent to the population mean, and so that should be 18.5. Next is to calculate and interpret the standard deviation. In order to calculate the standard deviation using this formula, we must verify that the 10% condition has been satisfied. And so recall that the 10% condition states that the sample size is less than or equal to 10% of the population size. And so that's what you see here. This is the sample size less than 1/10 or 10% of all US teens. Notice there's not a number here because we don't have an exact numeric value for the size of the population. But using common sense, we can still write this expression and consider it, a satisfied just by saying that we understand that 10 is clearly less than 10% of all the teens in the US. Then we can go ahead and proceed to calculate the standard deviation of the sampling distribution of X bar. And so recall that that is this formula, the population standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. Here is the numbers plugged in, and you get 1.676. And then the interpretation, don't forget to always look for the instructions for the question, is that the mean number of minutes spent watching YouTube in a sample of 10 US teens typically varies by 1.67 minutes from the mean of 18.5 minutes. And then finally, we'll go down and complete a normal calculation. Now, this is different than in part A. Notice that the parameters we're using for this distribution are the mean of the sampling distribution of X bar and the standard deviation of the sampling distribution of X bar. And so these numbers are going to be a little different. We just calculated this value in the previous step. Again, a label and shade in the area of interest. Your z-score formula looks a little different because it is for the sampling distribution of X bar. Here are the numbers plugged in, the final calculation of the z-score. Using table A, you'll find that you don't have an exact value because it's too small. So you would simply say it is less than the smallest value provided. Or you could also use normal CDF. And if you did that, you would just use the following calculations. You would say that this distribution's lower bound would be 25. No, let's actually do it like this. You could do that, but using the z-score, lower bound 3.88. Then you would have upper bound infinity, and then you would have mean 0 and standard deviation 1, remembering to label your calculator inputs. This is the lower, this is the upper, this is mu, and this is sigma for the standardized distribution. And then you're actually going to come out with a number that's very, very, very small. So this is the answer you would obtain using the calculator function. And that is the initial check your understanding for sample means.